Happy Tuesday, everybody. This will be our second day of notes on Unit 4, Forming a Government. Last Thursday, we started taking notes on the process that went into creating the Articles of Confederation, but also highlighted 6 key items about the Articles of Confederation. Yesterday, we looked at some of the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation using Daniel Shays' Rebellion as an example to highlight these different weaknesses. As we go through today, we're going to highlight some of the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, but we'll also highlight some economic problems and the power of Congress to establish and organize new states out there in the Western Territory past the Appalachian Mountains. Again, as you watch the video, and if I move too quickly, pause it so you're able to copy down the notes, which will come in handy on Thursday when you complete an open note quiz. And then when you finish, make sure you complete the note check questions before the end of the hour. So let's begin. 8 weaknesses for the Articles of Confederation. The image that we see on the board is Nassau Hall, which is located on the lovely campus of Princeton University, which was home for the Congress of not only the Second Council of the Congress, but home of the Articles of Confederation. One major weakness was that each state is going to receive 1 vote in Congress, regardless of its size or population. This was an item that was highlighted yesterday when we worked on the weaknesses using Daniel Shays' Rebellion. The big thing here is that you have states of all different sizes, but most importantly, of different populations. One of the most populated states during this time is Virginia, and they roughly have 700,000 Americans living within their border. We'll take that and compare it to the small state of Delaware that has roughly 70,000 individuals during this time. You would think that states that have more people who are in charge of the welfare would have more power or more votes in regards to Congress, but at this stage, they do not. This will be something that will be highlighted in the Constitutional Convention that we'll get to next week. The second item is that Congress did not have the power to tax. That's really the only way that a government can make money is if they tax the individuals living within their state or the federal boundaries. So now when we're in debt after the war, Congress is going to rely on the states to give the federal government money, which is something they're not going to do because they're only interested in themselves and the overall success of their individual state. One main reason why they're not going to give Congress the power to tax is because they just got done fighting Great Britain, and they were fighting back against Great Britain mostly because of the series of taxation that was passed by the Parliament onto the colonists to help pay for the debt of the French and Indian War. The third is that the Congress could not control interstate commerce. Basically, that's trade between 2 or more states. So you're going to have states that are going to have best friends, best trading buddies to conduct trade, and other states are going to be left out in the cold. So we're going to see a lot of unfair trade that's going to take place between the states, and Congress does not have the power to correct this issue. 4 is that they're missing the other branches of government that we have today. The executive branch, which we'll find out a lot more as we progress through this unit, is going to enforce the laws to make sure the American citizens are following the laws that are passed by Congress. They also don't have a judicial branch, which for the most part is the court system, to interpret the laws to make sure they are rightful and are not infringing on individual rights and liberties. Well, again, we'll talk more about the judicial branch as we progress through this unit. Number 6 is that in order to make changes to the articles, which these official changes will later be called amendments when we get to the United States Constitution. So if you want to create some type of change, maybe you want to add a new federal law or policy, you're going to have to get all 13 states to approve. It's a very difficult task to do since a lot of these states are only looking out for themselves. They have different political ideas and different forms of economies. So think about having a group of 13 people and you guys trying to decide where you're going to eat for dinner. It's going to take a while because some individuals may be set on going to Buffalo Wild Wings, while the rest of you want to go to Peel Pizza. So it's very difficult to have everyone in agreement. Number 7 is that if we're going to pass a law, we're going to have 9 of 13 states approve. The problems that arise are very similar to making changes. These states are only going to worry about themselves and are not going to pass any laws that infringe upon their overall success in their individual states. And the final weakness was that the central government has little control over anything. They're basically there as a figurehead to establish a national government to help protect 13 states, mostly during times of war. Otherwise, all the power is going to be given to the people and to their individual states, which is unfortunate because in order for the Articles of Confederation to work, all 13 states have to work together, which is something that they do not do. After the American Revolutionary War, the United States has racked up quite a bill. They are roughly $50 million in debt, mostly to their foreign allies, such as the Dutch, the Spanish, but most importantly, the French, who are going to provide them with uniforms, weapons, ammo, but also supply them with ships and other French soldiers. In order to pay off their debt, in regards to the individual states, a lot of these states are going to issue their own type of currency. Something that we were introduced to last week about the New Nation Faces Challenges, that these states thought that if they print enough paper money, that could overcome the debt not only at the state level, but at the federal level. But unfortunately for both the state and the federal governments, they don't have anything to make the paper money worth something. So a lot of times you need to have gold or silver in reserve to back up your paper money. The idea is kind of, I should be able to exchange my paper money in order to receive gold. So we have states that are going to issue their own paper money. On top of that, the federal government has the power to print money. So they're going to print both coined and paper money, which will be called continental dollars, to be used throughout the 13 states. Unfortunately, it's worthless because it does not have that gold or silver as reserves, but also because states are only going to utilize the paper money that was coined inside of their states and not really worry about the continental dollar. By doing so, we are going to see economic hardships. So as we are printing all of this money, the value for money, it goes down dramatically. For instance, 125 continental dollars is as good as $1 today in 1781. In the mid 1781, it's going to be about 700 to 1. So we see that the cost of money is less than the actual cost of goods and services. This will result to skilled workers like artisans and craft workers to only accept coins, for the most part, the pieces of 8, which was a Spanish currency, in order for them to complete their job. We're also going to see that the price for corn is going to skyrocket 60 times more than what it was during and before the American Revolution. On top of inflation, we are going to suffer through a depression, mostly because of the trading allies that we have are not conducting fair trade. For the most part, Great Britain is going to be the Americans' main trading ally, but shortly after the war, they're going to close most of the ports to American ships. They're going to enforce tariffs, which are taxes on imports and or exports. The Spanish are going to shut down the lower Mississippi, which will cause problems for farmers trying to get their goods to Eastern and foreign markets. So with the combination of a lot of paper money that's worthless will trigger an inflation. And then shortly after, due to our lack of trading, we will experience a depression, which is low business activity with the rise of unemployment. The images on the board kind of show us some of the fighting that takes place in Shays Rebellion, something we covered yesterday, but Daniel Shays was an American Revolutionary veteran, returns home to Massachusetts, and has to owe the state roughly $12 in taxes on his property. Daniel Shays, along with other veterans, were never paid for their service, and that will result in him starting a rebellion to try to shut down the government of Massachusetts so they're unable to collect taxes. But one power that Congress does have is how to settle the Western frontier. So to raise money to pay back our war debt, Congress is going to want to organize and sell lands in the West. Doing so, they're going to pass the Land Ordinance of 1785, which creates a system of surveying and dividing up the land. This idea was headed by Thomas Jefferson. He kind of persuaded Maryland to ratify the Articles of Confederation only if these other states give up their claims to land out west past the Appalachian Mountains. In doing so, they are going to allow Congress to set up a system to survey and divide the land that will eventually be sold to Americans. So surveyors, tools that they use to divide up the land and to mark the plots of land. So for the Land Ordinance of 1785, it's going to get the land in the Western frontier, mostly known as the Northwest Territory, and they're going to split it up into townships. Each is going to be the compass of 36 equal lots that is going to equate out to 640 acres. Now, the Congress knows that they want to be able to have all Americans move out to this Northwest Territory, not just the rich that are going to be able to afford this land. So they decided to drop down the prices since there was so much land in that Northwest Territory that an average American could buy an acre of land for roughly $1. If they have the big bucks, they can buy the entire lot of 640 acres, which is almost $17,000 in today's currency. Within the Land Ordinance, they are going to divide up the land into these 36 boxes. There are some requirements in regards to establishing these townships. One is that there has to be an area dedicated to public education. The others will be reserved for government buildings. Some land will be reserved for American Revolutionary veterans. The rest will go up for free sale for Americans to move into the area to start a new life. Roughly, the average size of a farm during this time period is roughly 1/4 of this area. So it was very commonplace for lower class citizens to make their way out west to start a new life and chase that American dream where you can create something out of nothing. But now, since we have an idea and a system in regards to developing and surveying and dividing up the land in that territory, 2 years later, Congress is going to pass the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. For the most part, we're going to focus in the territories up there by the Great Lakes. We'll get some wonderful states such as Ohio that are going to result of the Northwest Ordinance. So within the Northwest Ordinance, it really just creates a territory. And they also set up guidelines and rules that individuals must meet in order to take their territory to become a state. So the first one is that they are going to create a system on how to make new states, something Thomas Jefferson promised to Maryland in order to get the Articles ratified. The main thing is that once you get a couple thousand people, roughly 5,000 people, your land becomes a territory. Then once your population within this area or territory reaches 60,000 Americans, you are now able to petition to Congress to become a state. But in order for you to become a state, you have to hit that 60,000 American requirement, and you have to write a state constitution. Remember, constitution is guidelines of rules and laws and how they are going to govern their territory. Within their constitution is completed and they have the people, they will file a petition to Congress to join the United States as a state of America. And then within their constitution, it's important that they have slavery outlawed in the Northwest Territory. Even though slavery is going to be outlawed in the Northwest Territory, escaped slaves from the South can be captured and returned back to their masters down in those 7 states. They're also going to have requirements such as establishing public education, allowing the freedom of religion, and several other articles or rules that will look more into detail on Wednesday. That is your last slide for today. Make sure you have them all down because you're going to be able to use those on Thursday. Now what's left is for you to complete the note check activity inside the folder, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.